Go for it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the special edition episode of the Devils Insiders podcast, along with Dave Turner. I'm Jeff O'Connor. Well, it's finally arrived. Really, what was going to be the crowning moment of this 2015-2016 season. A few days in October, we found out February 9th would be Martin Brodeur jersey retirement night. He gets the whole ceremony, everything, the whole kit and caboodle as far as getting the proper send-off finally after his awkward leave to the St. Louis Blues in recent time. So finally, we get to tie off the loose ends. We get to welcome him home properly and get to totally just enjoy all the moments that were Marty. Forget the last little bit that was the St. Louis Blues part of his playing career and totally wrap up his career as a New Jersey Devil. So, Dave, and it turned out the team's been pretty solid this year, so that's been a fun bonus. It hasn't just been looking forward for the next 4 months when the puck dropped just to getting to this moment. The team's actually been pretty solid, above average, so that's been part of it too. But, Dave, it's weird to think, we both, born around the same time. We got to watch really Marty Brodeur play from beginning to end. I can't really remember I don't remember a stretch of time when he wasn't the starting goalie. So it's very strange as we age and everybody else in the world ages that our sports heroes are starting to totally move on, and a lot of the people that are now playing for the Devils are younger than we are.
Yeah, it is crazy. It's interesting to look at his career in terms of our own lives, and for anyone older or younger living, who's a Devils fan. Maybe if you're, 18 to 20 years old and you kind of came in when he was already established, and maybe you were born right around 1995, you certainly look at it different. But, for me, it's an interesting way that I kind of started my love for the Devils. Was my dad was the Devils team photographer up until after the 95 season, and he took me down to practice at Continental one day. It might have been a morning skate. I was 6 or 7 years old at the time. And I was getting all the players to sign autographs. And, of course I was happy. I got to meet Scott Stevens, who my dad was kind of close with, and Niedermeyer and all the other guys. It was really, really fun. But then, of course, the last guy off the ice that day was Martin Brodeur. And my dad kind of tells me the story because I remember it from my perspective as a little kid, that my eyes lit up and I was kind of in awe of seeing a very young Martin Brodeur come off the ice. And of course me, I knew he was good. I knew I liked watching him play. At that time, neither me or my dad, or maybe even Marty, knew what was in store, that what we were kind of at the precipice of, because they went on to win the Cup that year, of course. And it was kind of just like a welcome to the Brodeur moment for me, and it's something I'll always remember, just him coming off the ice with his pads, and he knew my dad pretty well, and just kind of spending a little time with him and getting an autograph. And ever since then, it kind of was really what hooked me into becoming a Devils fan. And I'm sure a lot of people have like their first memory of when they realized his greatness, or whether it was the Cup in '95 or even 2000 if you're a little older. But it certainly is interesting to think of the beginnings and just how long ago it was, and how long his career really was, and just all the memories that we've made because of him.
My first Devils game I ever went to, I was 9 years old. It was October of the 1996 season. The Devils played the Red Wings, so it was still fresh in my mind of the Cup victory, even though it was 2 seasons later. I remember getting to watch him play. I remember just about everything in my first Devils game, and that's it's hard to believe that my first Devils game, my first game seeing Marty will be 20 years ago this October. That's a crazy thought to me. So it's been also, all I can remember really is when I was in class. You always find time to doodle or do something when you're not learning a whole heck of a lot. And I can remember through grade school, probably through 5th, 6th grade, mid-late 90s, where I was always drawing Marty's mask. I was always drawing his pads. And I think that was the last time I was actually good at drawing, because that was the only thing I would want to draw was his mask, his pads. I always remember writing out Heaton in cursive. I'm not sure if Heaton pads are still around today or if Heaton equipment in general is around, but I remember that for the longest time of writing out that Heaton on the leg pad in cursive and trying to draw that mask, that intricate mask that he had for so long at the early part of his career. So, those are just great memories. And we got to watch him win cups, which was awesome. I mean, I remember I was lucky. I got to go see Marty. Me and my dad, we split playoff tickets with a family friend for the 2000 and 2001 playoffs, and we got to go see all of his, spectacular games, and all the memorable games. The first two nights of the shutouts in games 1 and 2 of the '03 Cup final. Where I that was really when the Marty's better chant really was at its apex for the most part. It started in that 2000-ish one where the Stars fans in the Western Conference Final were chanting Eddie's better against the Avalanche, and then I remember in Game 1 where the Devils just beat the tar out of him in 7-3. That was the first time the Marty's better chant came alive, and of course there were T-shirts made of it and everything. But getting to watch those 4 years of arguably his best hockey, even though his big win numbers came in the post-lockout era when there was more opportunities to get wins. Those 4 years, even 2002, forget the playoff loss to Carolina. Those 4 years were just impeccable to watch because he was just at the top of his game. He gave up a bad goal like once every 3 or 4 games. I mean, that's how good he was back then. I mean, he was an absolute treasure to watch. And I think we may not even get to realize how good Marty was because we get to enjoy Corey Schneider for the next bunch of years. So it still may not even hit us that he's retiring because there's such a good replacement in place. If going into this game tonight, if it was Marty's retirement and we were looking at still Scott Clemenson or someone playing goal, we'd probably all be in tears for the whole game. But I think it's going to be somber. It's going to be somber moments at some points tonight. But I think we're in such good hands with Corey that I still don't think we're going to recognize Marty's greatness until maybe Corey is left too, which is just unbelievable to think that we're going to get 3 decades worth of tremendous goaltending as Devils fans.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, though, and the fact that the one thing I've felt is that I haven't felt that it was final yet. That for some reason, I know he's not going to suit up again and start playing for this team, but maybe it hasn't really hit me that he's never going to play again for this team in a sense Corey Schneider has been so good that it's almost like, well, the drop off was never really there. But I think when we watch the videos and we hear the speeches, and I can't wait to hear Doc talk about him.
Oh, are you kidding me?
It's going to be tremendous.
Yep.
I think finally now it'll make you realize, and I think that we kind of hit on a point here where, that we grew up with him, and certainly we were young when he first came in, but we remember it, and it shaped us being sports fans. And I know sports are just sports, and sure, there's other things that are more important in the world, but as Devils fans, and I'm sure a lot of people listening to this can agree that it was Marty in goal for the Devils was just part of life in a sense where you knew for year after year that this team was going to be in the playoffs, they were going to challenge for Stanley Cups, and Brodeur was going to be great for it. And it's just interesting, like reflecting on the time, not just in sure, we know all the awards. We know what he's done. We know the numbers by now. I don't think we need to repeat those because it's been said so many times. Mm-hmm. But, I think that the interesting thing is framing everything that he did in terms of just growing up in New Jersey and being Jersey's team and how Marty became a citizen and really kind of loved New Jersey. It certainly seemed like he really loved being here. And he just became – it was like the familiar face. And I know you went through it with Mariano Rivera and Derek Jeter as a Yankee fan. And, we'll both do it with Eli Manning to an extent. But I don't know if anything can really compare it with Brodeur just because, he plays such a pivotal position that, you live and die with because he's the guy that, can influence every single game. And I think that – what's that?
I was going to say, how many players can you think of that – I'll let you finish your point in a second, but – just think of that, like how many players that are just all-time legends have played for a less notable team than the New Jersey Devils? You can pick out of the 4 sports if you'd like. It might rack your brain for a while to come up with a player you can argue was at the best of his position and played for a less notable franchise than the New Jersey Devils, which to me is just amazing. I'm so proud to be a Devils fan, and he's a huge reason because of that.
Yeah, that's actually a really really good point. I would have to think about that one really hard to kind of figure it out. Like even if you want to say Dominic Hasek with Buffalo, but he bounced around after that, so I don't really consider that. But I know even I'd really have to think about what sport and so on and so forth to really kind of think about that. But yeah, it's interesting that he was our guy, and certainly having the Flyers fans to the south, and you and I both going to Rowan University, where we were right in the thick of Flyer country. Then, of course, now being so close to New York, where we live, and being in New York and dealing with Ranger fans, where it was kind of it was that we always had that way to trump them, where we had Brodeur, and even in the days now with Ranger fans who will tell you that Henrik Lundqvist is better. That's for another day, but just having him as like that constant was, yeah. And as you said, the fact that like how many teams that are such small market have a player like that, and I really don't know. And that's to me what makes him so special is that I'm sure there was a lot of good players to put on the sweater over the years, and Lou was such a big part of it and all that. But he was the backbone. I mean, he's the reason why, honestly, I think the Devils aren't somewhere else, to be honest, because he was so good and allowed them to be contenders and to win Stanley Cups. And I don't know if they don't move to Nashville in '95, possibly, if they didn't have him or something like that. But I think that his legacy definitely spans beyond just the game of hockey. Like to look at him just by the numbers, sure, the numbers are incredible, but I think it's way beyond that.
I want to go back to what you said about the finality of it, and I think you're right. It's still it's not a bitter taste, but it's just an unsatisfied feeling when we all watched him, try and at first he wasn't even on the Blues. We go back to last season. It was, him just having to put a Blues uniform on to go try out. It just felt, I can't, it didn't tarnish anything for me, so to speak. And if it did, it's the slightest bit. But I just felt such a bad taste in my mouth, not only as a Devils fan, but for him as well. If this guy is still trying to, make a buck in the NHL, he's trying to hold on, and God bless him, in one thought process for doing that, for still going after his passion. But, the fact that we had to see, video of reporters filming him stepping onto the ice at Scott Trade Center for the first time in a Blues uniform to go try out. I mean, not even, it's one thing if he signed with the Blues and just he was just good to go, but the fact that there was coverage for several days that he was trying out for a hockey team like this legendary goalie, no matter how far past his prime, that he's going in, he's putting on this practice uniform. I don't know. There was just something about that whole vision that bothered the heck out of me, even more so than him wearing an official Blues uniform and playing in hockey games. Just the fact that he had to go put on a practice jersey and try out for an NHL team, I guess that's what you could say tarnished. Not the memories, but that point in time will be tarnished for me. I think whatever it was, November, December of last year, that'll always feel strange. Not last year, fall of 2014. That'll always be strange to me that that process actually happened. If he had signed with the Blues well beforehand, I think we all could have been like, okay, I found another job, good for him. But he waited it out, and he went in as a trialist. And I don't know, something about that bothered me. So there was never a finality to it. Like Danico, there was a perfect amount of time to breathe. He was done after 03. The 03-04 season had passed. The year of the lockout had passed, and then by late winter, early spring, his number was retired in 06. That felt perfect. The Scott Stevens thing, you felt bad because of the concussion he had halfway through the 2003-04 season. I mean, you kind of had a little bit of a sense. And when he hadn't made up his mind, early on in the process of when, whatever it was solved, I guess it was April 2000, 2005-ish that they finally started to figure out the lockout. And, those first month, 2 months went by, and you didn't hear anything from Scott Stevens or his agent or whatever. You kind of had a feeling that was it. So you were able to brace for that come the free agency period when they went and signed Malikov and McGillis and all those guys to try and recover. So you were able to brace almost pretty close to a full year, and you could kind of prepare. You knew Scott Stevens' retirement was coming. I mean, for me, the third guy whose number is retired, Scott Niedermayer, again, that was always kind of an awkward ending because it was one of the few times from one of my teams that the guy didn't just take the money. Scott Stevens, I've seen the figure. I can't remember how many years it was for because back then you could still there was no max on term of contract, but they offered him the max money possible, whatever it was, 20% of the salary cap, I think it was, or whatever it was, something like that. You could offer a guy 20% of the salary cap, and that was it. So that was what? The first salary cap coming out of the lockout was $39 million. So it was like $7.8 million, whatever the number was, and he didn't take it. And he went to go play with his brother out in Anaheim. And I was so stunned by that because at that point, I had it pretty good as the fan I was. I'd seen all the Devils had pretty much played their whole time from when I watched. All the Yankees had pretty much played their whole time. Nobody really jumped ship to another team. That was the first time that somebody left my team that was a prominent player, went to another team, and it was like, wow, you get shell-shocked because you never think, if you grow up like that and you grow up as naive as I did into I was 18 years old, and I had pretty much every player I got to grow up watching had never left. So when that happens, it left an awkward feeling in me. And even when he got his number retired, I didn't feel like a sense of connectivity to it, including that I didn't, I think a lot of Devils fans took him for granted. We didn't really appreciate the great player he was because he was behind Marty. He wasn't as big a name as Stevens defensively. He scored points, but Arnott, Elias, and McGillney, all those other guys were scoring more than he was. So he did everything really, really well, but he was really just not the best at anything in theory, or he was not the best name on the team from that caliber, if that makes sense. So I never got this feeling of closeness to Scott Niedermayer, although he may be the most underappreciated Devil ever. And I'm going on a huge rant here. But he was gone for a while, and even though I didn't know what to think of that when they wanted to retire his number, he was gone for a long time. It was the appropriate amount of time. Now we finally get to see it. There's no more bitter taste left in our mouth. We finally get to see the ending of the movie here the way it should be, and we don't have to think of him as a former St. Louis Blues player, now as a Blues front office guy. Now he's a legendary Devil. Not that he wasn't before, but now it's totally stamped and official that he's a legendary Devil who happens to work in the St. Louis Blues front office.
Yeah, it's interesting. I agree. I mean, Niedermayer is a topic I'm sure we can touch on another day. I agree, though. There's people who say he's the best Devil of all time. I don't know if I agree with that, but it is interesting. But with Marty, I think the one thing is that certainly you remember things that are more recent a little bit better than things from the past. And I think that even just in this conversation we're having for this podcast, I'm remembering some of the feelings, some of the moments involving Brodeur. And, it's almost as if you look at it now and you say, yeah, we do remember that St. Louis stuff, but we're not going to remember that.
No,
10, 15 years
for me, tomorrow it's gone. For me, it's gone after tomorrow, I think, because he hasn't done anything Devil related. I know he did something last year at the end of the season, when they mentioned, I forget what it was, but he returned. I don't even remember what it was. My gosh, it was so long ago. But he came back at the end of the season, did something with the Devils. I can't even remember what it was. Oh, it was the 95 team celebration. So that helped ease some of that Blues stuff. So that was nice to see. Trying to think. So that helped. And for me, tomorrow, all he's done has been Blues related stuff since he left the Devils. Now this for me is a cap entirely on his playing career. I'm not going to think of anything more than that tomorrow. So I'll let you finish your point. But for me, all the Blues playing stuff washes away tomorrow. I won't remember. I'll remember it, but I won't think anything of it ever.
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of washes away tomorrow, which is a good thing. But I think it's interesting looking at his career though, where you wonder if he was in a big market, if there would be a push to retire his number throughout the league. And I think the fact of the Marty rule and the fact that I think that a lot of fan bases are jealous. Even, the Montreal Canadiens and their fans are so supportive of him.
Yep.
But I think a little bit of part of it was they do still wish he was theirs. I mean, everyone wishes that they had this guy between the pipes for 20 years like the Devils had. And I wonder, if in a sense that in the great scheme of things, certainly we appreciate him. We watched almost all of his games, so on and so forth. But, looking at the league, I really wonder if he's ever going to get quite the due that he deserves. I mean, look, it's Wayne Gretzky's numbers are through the roof, and he was the great one. I mean, I guess you could say Marty has, some of the best numbers for goaltenders, so on and so forth. But certainly, I don't think there's people around the league who are, I wonder how many people out of 100, if you went all over the country, North America for that matter. I mean, maybe not Mexico, but in Canada as well, how many people would say he's the best goaltender of all time? And I wonder if it's because some of them are, Toronto probably hates Brodeur to an extent because of the playoffs. Certainly, the teams in the Devils division hate him because he just tormented them for years. The same way that people hate Derek Jeter because he was good and he won and he wasn't their guy. I almost wonder if Gretzky playing in Edmonton and then kind of bouncing around helped him because people saw him, especially North American fans, sure, the Oilers were winning, but they were the Oilers. Like, what kind of, hatred do you have for them? It's Edmonton, it's hockey, it's Canada, whatever. But, I really wonder if because he's a Devil, and there was certainly anti-Devil backlash because people hated the trap, or they hated that this small market team was winning, their Stanley Cups, if you want to say it that way, in Detroit with the Mickey Mouse organization kind of stuff. I really don't know if he's necessarily going to get the due that he deserves, with his place in NHL history. I don't know. I mean, maybe he will. Certainly he's going to be a Hall of Famer, first ballot, so on and so forth. I really want to see what the NHL website is going to be like tomorrow. And let's be honest, when Sidney Crosby retires in 10 years or whatever, I have a feeling the NHL website is going to be drastically different and that there's going to be more on him than there is on Brodeur. And, certainly I would think that Brodeur, I mean, who knows, Sidney Crosby could win 10 more cups. Funny, I turn on NHL.com right now and it's Sidney Crosby. But, they do have Brodeur stuff there. But, I don't know. What do you think? I'm not sure there's an answer to this, but I feel like he's never going to get the due he really deserves across the hockey world.
Here's
because of who he played for.
Here's what I'll say. In the immediate present, he won't get his due. If he was a Chicago Blackhawk or a New York Ranger or a Detroit Red Wing or a Toronto Maple Leaf or a Montreal Canadian or a Boston Bruin, he would be hailed as the greatest thing to ever play. He would be right there, right next to Gretzky, as far as I'm concerned. When you're talking about greatest players, he would be right next to Gretzky. Here's how he long-term. So right now I would say no, he does not. He's not going to get his hockey due. Here's how he can. When you get the next few generations of teams and players at his position, if his records can stand up after we've gone through several decades in the new NHL with the bigger chances to get more wins and compile better stats, I think if you give it, we've played what now? This is, we've already played a decade in the new NHL. You might have to give it another 10, 20 years. But if all or most of his records are still standing in, just for the heck of it, let's say 2036, then I think he'll get that recognition he deserves of being an all-time great, of being one of the best, maybe 5-10 players. Forget forwards, defenseman, goalie. Put him up there, top 5, top 10 of all time at any position. So I think if you give him a little more time, and it's a lot of time in theory, we're talking a decade or two still to go. But if we're still talking about Marty Brodeur is still holding, all-time wins record, the all-time shutout record. Those two really specifically, if those are still standing, and maybe some of his single-season marks still, if those are still standing, I think that raises his aura, if you will, even more so. So that's the way I'll see it. Like this year, they ran a number the other day that the way Braden Holtby's been playing, he definitely has a realistic shot to challenge Marty's single-season win victory. So that would be, a slight chink in the armor, so to speak, of, knocking off of one of Marty's records. So I think if those numbers can stand up, if the all-time wins and all-time shutouts, if that can stand up for the next 10, 15, 20 years, I think Marty will be looked at in a different light amongst the whole landscape of the NHL. So that's what I would say. In the present, he's gonna have to wait a little bit longer for, I think, everyone to really, really appreciate what he did as a hockey player. So that would be my answer to that.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the other idea to look at is that he plays a style. I mean, sure, he grew up before the butterfly was completely a thing, and he certainly adopted it, and it was part of his style. But he changed goaltending completely. I mean, still to this day, no one can play his style because I think, whether they're drilled in the butterfly or they're just not as athletic enough to play the way he does. I mean, he literally stands in a class of his own in the way he played. Not to mention his handling of the puck. I mean, you see goaltenders, hell, Corey Schneider goes behind the net to touch the puck, and you hold your breath. Guys don't handle the puck anymore because it's not part of the game either. And, in a sense, you want to say that it's the Marty rule. Okay. They made a rule because of him. He scored goals, and I think the hybrid style, I mean, all of those things that maybe are overlooked, but I mean, he was just so unique in that regard that, look at the saves he made, that you look at butterfly goalies now and you say, well, if they didn't go down so quickly, maybe they would have made the damn save, and just the way that he played the game in his own style, I think is just another thing that really makes him so unique, is that he did it his way. It wasn't, just being the best of the best when everyone looks, exactly the same in a sense, but the way that he played his game was just so different, and he was so good at it.
You could put up a silhouette of, I don't know, pick a number, 10, 15, 20 goalies, and you could pick him out just go through a whole bunch of simulated goalie movements. I'm pretty sure you would be able to pick him out of a lineup. Just a silhouette, just a gray-black outline of him making saves or moving from left to right or doing something. I really do think you'd be able to pick him out of a goalie silhouette lineup because his movement from post to post, or the way he moved from the top of the crease out, it was different than everyone else. I think that's a really good point. Is that you could just his general movements were different than everyone else's, and I think that's why he was such a unique talent. I mean, there's nothing he didn't do. I mean, for me, the only thing he didn't really accomplish in his career, he never got a finals MVP, a Conn Smythe, and obviously, us, casual, diehard Devils fans, we all know he should have won the 2003 Conn Smythe. He had 3 shutouts in the finals to go along with it. With a tremendous.
Don't get me started on that one.
I know. That was really slightly soured a moment for me that night, and I was lucky enough to be there that night. But let's get to moments in a short bit. Let's talk about the weekend that was, and I think it was great. You mentioned trying to build up some notoriety and bring some attention to it. I think the fact that the Devils did a whole stretch this thing from Saturday into tonight is just totally fantastic. I mean, you could run down the list of stuff that happened. I know there was a Marty Q&A on Monday, I think, but let's go back to Saturday. So he got to drop the ceremonial first puck, and the Devils held back some tickets, and I think they did a great job with this. They decided to have a little sweepstakes. You enter your name, number, email, all that stuff on the team website. There was 2 tickets, or maybe whatever it was. It was a pair of tickets left, or 2 pairs of tickets, whatever it was. You got a personal, if you won, you got a personal phone call from Marty during one of the intermissions, saying congratulations, you won the tickets. And I'm not sure if they get to meet him or not, but still, just have Marty Brodeur call your cell phone. That's pretty darn close to a big a thrill as maybe even going to tonight's game. I mean, that's got to be pretty cool. So I thought they did a really nice job with that on Saturday. It was a pretty good game to watch as well. So it was fun. I enjoyed on Sunday. There wasn't much going on as far as quote Marty weekend, if you want to call it that. I'll gladly call it that. There wasn't anything going on. The Super Bowl was that day. There was only 3 games on in the NHL, but a picture surfaced, and I think it was Ken Danico put up. Maybe it was Marty who put it up. I think it was Ken though. He put up a picture, and it was some of his old teammates, which is great, and that's always the fun part of this stuff too. And Marty's going to get the biggest ceremony of all. Ken's and Ken Danico and Scott Stevens had really great ceremonies. I think Scott Niedermayer's was a little bit less because the fans had such a huge, strong connection to Stevens and Dano as a pair, as opposed to Niedermayer. I mean, you're going to get everyone from all walks of life tomorrow. I mean, the picture he took, one of his longtime defenders in front of him, Colin White, Ken Danico, as we mentioned. Even Jim McKenzie was in there, a guy who played, maybe 30 to 100 total games for the Devils. I forget the exact number, but he had a cup of coffee. He was on the 03 Cup team. He was in the picture. Jacques Caron, his former goaltender coach, was in that picture as well. So you're going to get everyone there tomorrow. His family, all his sons, his daughter. That should be a great time. Unfortunately, his dad passed away recently, so that's probably going to be the one. If he could probably pick one guy to be there, it would be him, but he won't be there. But I'm sure Marty will have him on his mind all day and all evening. But you're going to get everyone. You're going to get a rousing. As you mentioned, Doc Emmerich's coming back. Gosh, it doesn't get any better when Doc is in the building, eloquently describing Marty's style. I can't wait to hear all the verbiage he has tomorrow for that. It's just going to be fantastic. Hopefully Chico's in
Jeff,
the building.
I have a really quick sidebar for you here.
Yes.
Discussing it tonight. Doc Emmerich, just really quickly here, just while we're talking about retiring. Yeah. Do you think the Devils or the league as a whole should put his name or something in the rafters?
Not the league. I know he's been the voice of the NHL for a long time, but I would, at some point, I would like to see instead of a number, I would like to see Emmerich's name in the red and black stitching of the with the jersey and everything, but with the microphone under his name. I think that would be, I think that'd be fantastic. I would love to see that. I'd love to see that at some point.
Yeah, just a sidebar because I know, both of us, and I think in a sense, Doc is so intertwined with Marty because so many of the moments were his call. Certainly, the 2000 finals was Gary Thorne with ESPN, but I mean, we they were almost synonymous with each other for years where we heard all the waffle boarded away among a million other things, and I think it's going to be great to hear him tomorrow. I can't wait to hear what he has to say about him. It's going to be special.
That's right. We get to hear about all the remarkable saves. I mean, it's going to be such a fun time to, Doc calling a Marty save. I mean, gosh, I can't think of many better things than that. I'm so excited to see Doc tomorrow as well. And hopefully that'll be something that happens at some point. So, gosh, where were we? I don't know where we were. But, yes, so a lot of guys will be coming back, as we saw in the picture of the Super Bowl Sunday. And then today, again, more great stuff. Marty getting involved with the hockey clinic in the Garden State. And before that, opening up a program in his dad's name for kids who want to get into photography, which I thought was a great ode to his dad. Something else that Marty can, keep in touch with. He's obviously got a lot going on as an assistant GM of the St. Louis Blues, but I mean, something like that, to do something in honor of your father, which was his greatest passion, photography. I mean, that's just fantastic. I thought that was great. And then he went over to the Rock. They unveiled the statue. I haven't gotten to take a real good look at it yet, so I'll do that at some point today before I head over to the Rock. And then fans got to stick around and watch the game with Marty, the Devils Rangers game. So he was in the building for that. And then everyone got a good night's rest, and we're ready to go today. And I'm interested to see how long the ceremony goes, how long an ovation he gets. I mean, that's always the fun part to me is the ovation. How long the Devils fans are going to stand up for? Is it going to be a Just a basic 2 minute standing ovation. Can they go? Can us Devils fans in the house make it go 3-4 minutes before Marty even tries to crack the mic? I mean, that's always a blast. And we've been lucky to get a few of these ceremonies. It's always such a good time to be in the building for those. That'll be great. I know they're starting at 6:15. We'll see how long it runs. How many people speak?
Apparently there's a 7:15 media availability for him. So who knows how
Got to
strict
be
they're gonna
wrapped up
on
by
that schedule.
7 then, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, I would think, just under an hour kind of thing. Certainly they're probably going to have a little more room to play with the ovations and that kind of thing and all that. But I would think, yeah, just under an hour seems like a good number.
And I always like to see, very, very off topic here. I always like to see what the other team does. I remember when Stevens got his number retired. I know when the ceremony started, when they were just kind of introducing and setting the scene, the Hurricane, they were playing the Carolina Hurricanes that night, February 3rd, 2006. But they came right before Stevens got to the mic. Everyone filed in and they all watched the ceremony. I thought that was great. I always like to see what you get from other coaches. What do they think? How will they respect the moment? Not that it matters. If the Edmonton Oilers don't come out and watch the ceremony, it really doesn't matter. But I always think it's cool when, it's hockey. They're all brothers. It's cool to see when they come out and, celebrate a fellow brother, so to speak. So I hope the Oilers come out and watch some of the ceremony. I think that'll be great. I mean, they might as well. I mean, it's not like they're going to be starting the game cold. Everybody's going to watch the ceremony, and then they go right into warm-up. So they've done ceremonies in the past where they'll kind of get the game going relatively shortly after that. But when the ceremony wraps up, it's like you're there for a regular hockey game, just pushing the clock back an hour. So you said his media availability 7:15. The warm-ups will probably get going maybe 5-10 minutes after he leaves the ice, and it'll be like a normal hockey night. And that'll be a good time. It's going to be obviously a packed building, which should be fun. Devils are still trying to hold on in the thick of a playoff race, so you would think that the crowd will be very much into it. I think that kind of wraps up the 4-day stretch. But I think it was a great job. Kind of having him in the mix out around the Garden State over the last few days has been great.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they really did a nice job with this. That it wasn't just about the him, but also him giving back. That he went and did the photography thing and even the clinic and all that. That it was his
idea too. I mean, it's not like when he went and negotiated his own contracts. He doesn't just do things because people tell him to do things. This is stuff he wants to do.
Absolutely. I mean, certainly, I met Marty as a kid. My father knew him pretty well. I got a chance a few years ago to ask him a couple of questions in the room when I had a press pass. And certainly he's just such a cordial guy, always smiling. I mean, always kind of cracking a joke. I think he really, I think he appreciates all of this. And I think he knows that he has this chance to kind of leave his legacy on things. Because of hockey, and he can do more and kind of honor his dad as well with the photography thing. And it's one thing to be a great player, but I think that he also realizes what he and his ability meant to the fans in the state of New Jersey as well.
I can't wait. The hours cannot count down quick enough here. So
it doesn't feel a little bittersweet though? I mean, it's
it is. It's the last time you'll see him for a while. This is, yeah. It is very final, so to speak. I mean, you're going to have this, and then really, when's the next time you see him in, forget the building, anywhere in the state of Jersey? I mean, he's got a pretty good gig down in St. Louis. I mean, I think his condo is still for sale over in West Orange. I don't think there's really nothing for him to stick around for here anymore. So, I mean, when's the next time you're bringing him back? I mean, you're talking maybe, maybe 2018 if they celebrate like maybe the 15-year anniversary of the 2003 Cup team. I don't know, or maybe the 40th anniversary of Devils hockey. Maybe the 30th anniversary of Devils hockey was 2011, 2012. So maybe you're talking 2001, 2022, something like that. I mean, I don't see an occasion if Patrick Elias gets his number retired. I mean, that would be an opportunity for him to come back. Otherwise, I don't really see. Or if Lou gets a banner or something like that, I don't see how he comes back. So yes, this really is a chance to. It's not just a chance to enjoy and celebrate. It is really an opportunity to say goodbye one last time because you're really not going to see him again. I don't know when you see him. I just brought up those moments, but those are few and far between and years away. Really, I can't see him being in the Garden State for at least another 3 years, something like that. I don't see an opportunity where he comes back for at least another 3 years by the scenarios I just sorted out there. So this is to celebrate and to say to finally get that real goodbye. I know we got that goodbye in that game against the Bruins at the end of the 13-14 season, but that wasn't his last game as a hockey player. So I don't think we've had a chance really to say, I guess, that fitting final goodbye. And maybe that's what I'm most excited about, is that he's finally ending his hockey career Tuesday night, February 9th, before the Devils take on the Edmonton Oilers. I think that's what I'm most looking forward to, is kind of tying off that loose end, putting a bow on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's funny. I know this is a random thought. They are playing the Oilers. We are going to hear "O Canada." I hope they do the second verse in French for him, which they certainly can do. And I hope that no one ruins it because that's still. I know
good luck
you
with that, Dave.
Yeah,
good luck with that.
I don't want to get into that. I don't want to get into that because it kind of makes me angry. But
you know who you are in 116, 117. Don't do it.
Yeah. But yeah, it is interesting that this is kind of the final moment. And I also think it's a teaching tool for if you're bringing kids or maybe you're younger and you can learn, maybe there's something you'll find out about his career. Take it all in, I know people like to booze it up before the game. I might even go have a beer, but don't go in there loaded tomorrow. Don't go in there and be eating. Really enjoy it because this is the last moment that you're really gonna have with him for a while. Sure, there'll be stuff on NHL.com. Maybe MSG will for once not play the 94 Cup video and play a little bit of Devil stuff, which there actually was Marty's 300th win was on MSG just before.
I saw that. Why?
Which was fantastic, and he made a great save. And I'm like, oh my God, this is just so great to see. But
why were they playing that? That's such a random game. Have they ever played that before? Why was that being played?
I don't think so. I think they were just kind of showing some moments,
okay.
just of highlights throughout his career, which is great. I mean, I wish they'd do that more often. But let's be honest, they're on a channel where the Rangers and the Knicks and even the Islanders are more important. So, I think that's the biggest thing is enjoy this, savor it, because unfortunately, look, they have a great goaltender in Corey Schneider now, but the team needs a lot of work. And to be quite honest, I think they're going to be out of it by the end of this weekend. We'll find out. And who knows when they're going to win another Stanley Cup? Who knows if Corey Schneider will even get a chance to do what Marty kind of did in the playoffs. Enjoy it because these things don't happen. I mean, look, you could be a Cleveland fan and never see a championship. There's no guarantee the Devils will ever win a championship in our lifetime. I hope that's not the case. But, really savor these moments because who knows? You might not get a chance to really feel this way. 2012 even feels like an eternity ago at this point. And, that's the biggest thing is, if you have kids or you're going with someone interesting. I'm actually sitting with a friend who we've kind of converted to a Devils fan. He was never really a hockey guy. And I think for him, I think it's really great for him to, I can't wait to be like, oh, yeah, man, like all these cool things. And I'm sure he'll like have questions or whatever. But, I think that's a cool thing is just being able to bridge the gap for maybe some younger fans that are there that didn't get to see a lot of this, but now they'll kind of understand its place in history of sports in general with tomorrow.
Agrees. Let's start to wrap up the show a little bit. Let's talk about some of the Marty memories, whether it was remembering where we watched them, actually being there in person, or whatever. So let's start with that. I mean, for me, we'll kind of go back and forth. We'll kick some ones around. For me, people ask me sometimes, what's the best hockey game you've ever been to? Or what's the best hockey game you've ever been to? And I answer it two ways. For me, 2003 Game 7 is the best game ever because, me and my dad finally we got to see them win the cup at home after we had missed in years past. We were at Game 6, 2000 against Colorado, where they had the early goal waved off, and then they ended up, giving up whatever it was the next 4 goals. They lost, and they ended up losing the cup in general. The year before that, We were at game 5 where they could have won in triple overtime, and they finally won in 2003, which brings me to which kind of ties it in together. So that's the greatest. That's my favorite game of all time. But the best game I've ever seen, and you can go find it online. There's a user on YouTube who's just done a phenomenal job of archiving old Devils footage off of Fox Sports, ABC, ESPN. It's McKay something and then a bunch of other numbers. You can find it if you look up old random Devils clips, which I'll probably tell you about right now. That game epitomized everything that was fun about hockey in that entire game. The Devils had a chance to win the cup. It was scoreless the entire game. It wasn't a boring game. There was, close to probably more than a half dozen to a dozen golden opportunities for both scoring chances on both sides, and both goalies making unbelievable saves. It was, Devil stars, Brodeur against Eddie Belfour. And you can look up some of those saves, the one on Sylvain Cote, Yuri Lettinen, Grant Marshall, Darian Hatcher. Every save he made is unbelievable. The crowd's reaction is unbelievable every time. They ended up losing the game in triple overtime on a Mike Modano goal, but they won the cup, 2 nights later in Dallas. And that, for me, that's why I can always go back and appreciate that game. Now, if they lost that series, I probably wouldn't be enjoying watching. I wouldn't have, say, oh, I really enjoyed that goalie exhibition, but the fact that they won it a few nights later. So for me, and some of the saves Eddie Belfour made obviously were brilliant too. But if you go back, look up 2000 Game 5 of the 2000 Stanley Cup Finals. Brodeur just makes a bunch of unbelievable saves that brings the crowd to their feet, several times during the course of that contest. So, do you have a favorite Devils game? I mean, I guess if you say a favorite Devils game, it's pretty much going to include Marty or a favorite Marty moment that sticks out more than any other.
There's so many. It's hard. I mean, I could start listing them off for you. The one that I never saw live, but I've seen most of all of it since then, that is just impressive now watching it, is the Dominic Hasek 0-0 game, where both guys were just unbelievable. Nothing was getting past either of them, and it just showed how they were both just so much better than any other goalie in the league at that point. That one was impressive, though I didn't see that live. One that really stands out to me was 2009, I believe the year was. Or maybe it was 2010. I think it was either early 2010 or 09. I can't remember what year it was. When he went out with the biceps injury. And it was the first time that he had missed time, and Scott Clemenson filled in really well. But it was kind of the moment when you realized, like, wow, there is going to be a day when Brodeur is not going to play. And not having him for a while kind of made you miss him a little bit. And I remember driving up from Rowan with a couple friends, and he ended up shutting out the Avalanche 4-0. And I'm thinking, like, I remember me, I'm always maybe a little bit on the pessimistic side. I'm thinking, it's just the end for him. Is he going to be able to come back and be good right away? And he shuts him out. And it was just so amazing to watch him be able to come back from that and have a shutout, and you're like, wow, he still has it, which he certainly did. And, at that point, he was still very good. Maybe not quite in his prime anymore, but still very good. And that was just really cool to see that for me. I think the other one that was really great, though, I mean, to me, I think for both of us, and I looked at it in terms of Marty, though, was certainly the 2012 Game 6 against the Rangers, just because for him, it was just great to see him. And, sure, we were excited about the team and all that, but just for him to get another chance. And, if anything, I wanted them to win more just to get him another cup to kind of shut everyone up, like the Lundqvist debate, because Lundqvist was kind of entering his prime at that point.
Yep.
And all that. And just to have him win that game and to be there for that, when, look, we knew the end was coming at that point. He certainly was towards the end of his, he was okay that year. And just to get there. Then my first Devils game, I can't remember what year it was. I think it was either 94 or 95. I probably was 94 against the Quebec Nordiques. And him and Stéphane Richer were my two favorite players at the time. And just my dad talking about him. And that's kind of why, is because my dad knew him very well, actually, through his father, Dennis, because he was a photographer like my dad. So that I kind of had a little bit of that, that insight with him and the way my dad talked about him, and it was kind of, was very friendly with him. They actually, apparently, my dad actually used to go hang out with him when he lived in Hackensack. Actually, believe it or
Oh,
not,
wow.
yeah, because his dad and my dad were so close. Because my dad, always tried to make him, get wherever he wanted to go and all that. And I guess Dennis was very appreciative of that. Apparently, Dennis was a tremendous guy. I never got a chance to meet him. Wish I had. But yeah, it's just, I don't know if I could. I mean, those are just ones that kind of stand out right away. I remember fighting with my mom. I was, we were 12, 13, I guess. You might have been 13. I was 12 in 2000 when they won the cup. I remember the night of the triple overtime game. It was really late. And she's, oh, you got to go to bed. And I'm like, no. And then, of course, the next night when it goes to overtime, and she's even more pissed off because it's happening again. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. I have to stay up. I have to stay up. And then that just kind of stands out just as a team thing in general, just because I'm like fighting just to watch it, and she didn't understand, that it was important, whatever. My mom not a big sports person, but that one kind of stands out too. Yeah, there's just so many.
My mom was out of town for that game 6. I don't remember where she was. So it was just me, my brother, and my dad. So I knew we were good. Didn't matter what time of the night. We were staying up till to go back to that game 5 I was talking about. So I was there for that game. It was a school night, whatever it was. It was a Wednesday or Thursday. I think it was a Thursday night.
Yeah.
So in between, I actually had schoolwork I had to get done. We went to the game right afterwards. So I'm between periods and overtime periods. Devils could win a Stanley Cup at any minute. And I'm reading some book. I can't remember what it was. Maybe it was Hounds of the Baskerville or something like that. It was, what grade was I was in 7th grade. I think I was reading Hounds of the Baskervilles in between periods because I had to get my schoolwork done. And then when we get into the intermissions of the overtimes, the food, all the food has been shut down. The only thing you can get is like Reese's and a Sprite. So me, my brother, and my mom were not surviving, whatever you want to call it. We were munching on that as a late night snack. And at one point, my mom's talking about leaving the game, and I start losing my mind. She doesn't budge a bit, and I just look at my dad, who's on. My mom's to my right, my dad's to my left. I look at my dad, and he just looks at me and just shakes his head, said, "We're not going anywhere." So I was like, "Thank goodness." I mean, they lost, and then we got home at whatever it was 2 a.m, and going to school sucks. But that was awesome because my dad was just like, "We're not going anywhere, so don't worry about it." So yeah, I remember those few days very, very well. Yeah, you know what? I mean, there's so many great. Oh, by the way, a little mini trivia question here because of a name you mentioned before. Who played goal the night Ken Danico's number was retired?
If you give me, oh my God,
It was March 2006.
Was it Kevin Weeks?
It was Scott Clemenson.
Oh, it was Clemenson.
Yeah, you were mentioning him before, so I figured I'd throw it in. It's a random, it's good for party talk when you're there with your Devils fans. You can throw that out there that 10 years ago when Ken Danico had his number retired, it was Scott Clemenson who played goal, not Marty that night.
And it's probably going to be Kincaid too. I mean, I know that could change by the time people are listening to this, but I'm assuming since Corey got a workout because we decided not to play defense in front of him.
Oh my gosh.
I'm assuming it's going to be Kincaid, though obviously that could be a moot point or not by the time you might listen to this tomorrow. But yeah, so interesting that it might be Kincaid on Marty night.
Yeah, you mentioned 2012. I mean, that may be my favorite. That's one of my favorite years, maybe even more so than some of the cup runs because he was not his great self, but he was still solid. He still could make a game-turning save. That really was the last year of his, I guess, mortality, so to speak. And I guess that made me super proud of him. I sound like he's my kid. He's not my kid. But I was so proud that whatever was age, what was he, 37, 38, 39, that he was still an important cog in them getting to the Cup Finals. I know a year or two before that year, his numbers were not good, especially the 2010-11 year. His numbers were not good. But he bounced back that year, and that gave me so much pride that, man, our guy at 39, he's worn down a little bit. He's a little bit diminished, but damn, he's still good enough to bring a team to the finals. I don't know, that year I'll always be proud of that team, even though they didn't win the cup because, no one had them going to the finals that year. So I'll always appreciate that team. Those 2 cup teams and the one that lost in 01, that's where they were supposed to be. They were supposed to be in those games. The '95 team will always be my favorite because it was a surprise team. But 2012 is right in the mix there because that team probably on paper didn't deserve to be in the Cup Finals, but he was a big reason why they were there. So um, I always enjoy looking back on that team. I'm trying to think of any other stuff. What do you got? What do you got?
I've been, the last few minutes I've been watching highlight videos and just kind of, yeah, it just, again, I think
I got something when you're done.
Okay, the biggest thing that stands out to me is that watching goalies now, I mean, I know Quick is a little bit of a different style because he's like the butterfly prone version, laying on his stomach half the time. But, most goalies are kind of the same now. It's the butterfly kick post to post, and I'm watching the save Marty made against the Kings. It was probably right around then, wasn't the finals, where, he's out in the crease and there's a guy in the slot. No, he had just made the save. There's no way he should get there. And instead of, doing the butterfly kick from post to post, he goes in and just, he just cuts across and doubles, the stack save, and he made it. And you think, wow, that's incredible how he's able to move, even when this was, a few, on. And it's just amazing watching the way he played that was so different. And I think because every goaltender is kind of cookie cutter now, it almost makes it more impressive.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I totally agree with that. His style, like I said, about that silhouette, you could pick him out of a lineup if you just put a curtain and over it and just looked and saw the silhouette and the motion, the movements. You'd be able to pick Marty out. My biggest regrets will always be not going to his final game in 2014. I just started a new job, and I had to do adult things. I had to not go to the game and pick up a shift because I still wanted to impress my bosses there early on. So I guess it's a regret, but I still have that job, and it's still I still like doing that job. So I guess I can't complain too much about that. Not going to his record-breaking win. I had another kind of work thing. I just started an internship while I was still finishing up college. I was working on my master's thesis, and I just couldn't do it. I couldn't get up there. I wanted to, never got there. But I do have some moments that maybe not a lot of other people can say. Marty Brodeur broke Bernie Perrant's record for single-season victories in the mid-2000s. He did it in Philadelphia, and I got to be there for that. So that was a really cool moment. And I have to admit, I know we rag on Flyers and their fans as much as possible. A good portion of that crowd was clapping after that game was over to honor Marty for breaking their guy's record. So I know they get a lot of shit sometimes, and are we allowed to say curse words? Whatever. It's whatever. We can do whatever we want.
We kind of make our own rules, so why not?
Yeah, we're an independent site. We can do whatever we want. So I thought that was always cool. They always get a lot of crap that maybe they shouldn't. Sometimes deserve, sometimes not. But they cheered. A good amount of them, maybe not cheered, but they clapped and applauded when Marty broke that record. I also got to see Marty's 500th victory in Philly not too long after that. So that was a great time.
Yeah. You know what one I just remembered that kind of slipped my mind? That was really kind of powerful to me because I respect them so much, and I kind of have I kind of enjoyed the Habs because of the Marty connection. Is the last game he played in Montreal, which I wish I could have gone to. I've been up there for Devils Canadiens games. I've been up there for another couple other Canadian games. The ovation they gave him. Yeah, he's a hometown guy, but I think it's also the fact that they have seen so many greats come through their buildings. I mean, if you go back generations, they've seen the best of the best, and they've won so many cups. And I think not only was it the fact that he was a local guy, but his greatness and the fact that they know greatness, those fans, as much as they, they get pissy and whatever, and they're kind of, they're really angry at their team, and say what you want, but they're really good fans. And I've had a lot of interactions with their fans. I actually wore my Brodeur jersey when I went to Leafs versus Canadians, and I had some interesting responses from people. Some saying, like, I'm going to wear red because I hate the Leafs, that kind of thing. And saying I wanted to wear, to thank you, almost like a thank you guys for producing this, this player for us in a sense. But I thought that was really special, actually, watching them salute him like they did. Their team lost, and they were saluting him like that. And I thought that was really powerful because, as much as we talk about how, the league maybe doesn't give him as much due as he deserves. I think the Canadians fans certainly do, especially because he played lights out when he went there. I mean, he tormented them for years. Uh, I thought that was really cool because it was unique. It's something that was unique to him and his kind of thing, as opposed to like the Kobe Bryant retirement tour where he's going to shoot 6 for 29, and it doesn't really matter. It was kind of cool to see them give the props to Brodeur that he deserved.
I got three more, I guess, moments or things I want to bring up, and then I really don't have anything left, and I think it's a perfect place to put it.
Yeah.
Game 7, 2003. We briefly mentioned it. I'll always remember when Gary Bettman announced the Conn Smythe winner that it was Jas Jaguar. The boos that rained down, not for Jas Jaguar because he was he was certainly in the conversation for it. The boos were for the decision. We all wanted Marty. We weren't booing Jaguar. We were booing the decision more than anything. So I always remember then Jaguar taking the trophy off the ice, and then Marty kind of shrugging, having his arms out, smiling. Like you said before, you always remember his smile, and the crowd kind of turning from those boos to big cheers, seeing Marty as happy as he was, that he didn't really care if he got the MVP. So I'll always remember that. When the Devils went up 3-0 on the Rangers in 2006, I always remember me and my dad got tickets last minute because they were so cheap to get. So we went. We got to see them. They fell behind and they won the game. I think whatever it was, 3-1, 4-1. And to see Marty, he up until that point, he never really did fist pumps for anything. Not overtime wins in the regular season. Not anything. And that was like the first display of emotion from Marty, like ever. That pump in the air that he finally beat the Rangers. He lost to them, and then the heartbreaker in '94. Losing in overtime in Game 5 in '97 to them. Finally beating them, and the Devils, before Marty really was solidified there, they lost to them before '94 as well. I think it was '91 or '92 they lost to them in the playoffs as well. So finally beating them and pumping that arm in the air is always such an iconic picture for me, and I'm glad I got to see that. And then for me, maybe this wraps it up altogether. During pregame warmups, everyone kind of skates around. He would skate around as well. And then everyone's standing on the blue line. He's finishing up his stretches. They're getting pucks out of the net. And then the way he would stride to the net and the anticipation for our guy, like you said, our guy, to get in the net and go to work, just the build to that moment and the ovation he got. And I remember, it was more so in the 90s where it was crazy. I mean, it was still loud, over the last, 5-10 years when he would get in the net for warmups. But I still get chills. The hairs on the back of my neck always raised in pregame warmups when he got in the net and he got those huge ovations. I don't know if that happens everywhere for even, good, great, above average goaltenders. I'm not sure what that's like in other buildings and what it was like over the last few decades. But for me, I would get goosebumps and chills when he would go into the net and he would get the ovation he did before, 30, 40 minutes before game time, the ovation he would get when he would take the net to go to work. I don't know. That might be among all the individual stuff. I guess that more so than anything sums up how I feel about Martin Brodeur. When he would get into the net, the feeling I got when he got into the net during pregame warmups.
Absolutely. And I think my last point here, I'll let you wrap it up. I kept saying to enjoy it tomorrow, and I do. Don't be on your phone the whole time trying to Instagram it and stuff like that. Really take it in. I think we get so caught up in shooting videos and stuff that you're not really paying attention to it. Enjoy it. Let the emotions run through you. I'm sure, I'm sure more of us will be crying than we want to admit. Our friend Brian made a good one today, and he goes to his girlfriend, "Look, this is the only time you might see me cry, so enjoy it." But I think, being on that about enjoying it is that a good one that when my dad was in the locker room after the 95 Cup, and Denny Brodeur, who had been through more cups than he knows what to do with the Montreal Canadiens, my dad was taking pictures, and Denny goes up to him and he says, "Let me take your camera. Go have," Marty was like, "Here, have a beer." And he goes, "Go have a beer and enjoy this." And my dad was thinking, oh, I got to do my job. And he let Denny shoot his camera, actually. So there's a picture of my dad and Marty drinking beer out of the cup.
I've seen that picture. I didn't know his dad took it, though. It's so cool.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing about it is, sometimes we just kind of take things for face value. And yeah, it's just sports. But it's ingrained in us. And I think that's the cool thing is that there are raw emotions and it's okay. And that's a good thing. And, that might not happen ever again, for the Devils at least. Or, you've been through it with Mo and Jeter, and those were special in so many ways too. But, this isn't going to happen again. No matter who, Eliash's number retirement will almost kind of pale in comparison to this.
Yep.
This is the one. This is the moment to honor him and to put the camera down or put the phone down and go have a beer or go relax and go enjoy every minute of this, because it's going to be really special, and it's something that I think anyone who's there is going to remember for the rest of their lives.
The New Jersey Devils were built. They're great era teams. They were built on defense and goaltending. 3 defensemen's numbers are in the building currently, raised up high in the rafters. In just a short period of time, the man who played behind them for all those years, Martin Brodeur, will rightfully join them to make up 3 defensemen and 1 goaltender of the glory days of the New Jersey Devils. And I know I can't wait. Folks, enjoy it. Get there early. The doors open 4:30. The ceremony starts somewhere between 6:15. Do whatever you have to do. If you have to take a half day from work, don't rush the rink. Just get there. Like Dave said, you've got a chance here one last time to enjoy and say goodbye to Marty Brodeur. Get there, take in all the moments, and just have a great time. Because, like you said, Corey Schneider, and we're going to see other good and great players come. There's never going to be another Marty Brodeur. There's not going to be anyone who's ever going to match what he meant to this franchise. And I'm glad we get to enjoy it one last time tomorrow night. Dave, been a pleasure. I will see you in a few hours at the Rock. We'll have a brewski or two and reminisce even more about the good old days of number 30 Martin Brodeur.
Absolutely. Can't wait for it.
Folks, enjoy the game. We will see you at the Rock. Let's go Devils, and thank you, Marty.